Hello, everybody. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Please let me know in the comments what city, what country, what state, what galaxy you are tuning in from. And before I shout before we get into the topic, I'm going to shout out your cities and countries and so on. So I've got a few things prepared here for you. Christ. Oh, man. All right, hold on. There we go. We got people coming in from Lebanon, Montreal, from Ireland, from Hawaii, Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, Manhattan, Michigan, California, Cape Town, Amsterdam, Brazil, Bahamas, Barcelona, from Bakhmut, from New York City, from New Jersey, Detroit, Florida, Palestine, UK, New York, Georgia, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, Uranus. There's always somebody who's Wales, Long Island, Wisconsin. You guys are great. You guys are great. All right, please make sure you've pressed the like button. You guys know the drill. You have to hit the like button. I'm gonna start demanding this as a prerequisite. Like, you know, I'm gonna go on union strike. I demand an equal number of likes to viewers, lest I abandon the stream completely. Okay, we've got 500 people watching. We only have half that number in likes. Okay, now it's starting to go up. 300 likes. Come on, guys. You forgot to press the thumbs up. You forgot to press the like button. Okay, I want to get on with the show. I mean, it's not exactly pleasant news, but, you know, we try and go through it nonetheless. And, all right. Here, can you guys see that? What do you think? What do you think? I'll tell you what I think. Let's deal with this topic first. Let's tackle this one first. So the latest Russian atrocity, right, is a missile strike on a pizzeria. Okay, so this is the headline that you're gonna see everywhere, BBC, CNN, that the Russians, because they're so evil and you know, just full of malice. They had nothing better to do than to use a $3 million missile on a pizzeria, just for the sake of it, just to blow a pizzeria. Maybe they hate Italian cuisine. Maybe they just want to murder civilians. You know, that's it. There's no need for me to do the segment or for us to use our brains or any critical thinking skills. Just accept the headline and go about your day. Okay? So here's what it says on CNN. Kramatorsk restaurant strike shows that in Ukraine, death can come anytime, anywhere. And there's some really, you know, I mean, the pictures, I can't even show you all the pictures and videos because it is horrible, right? We're not going to make light of that. But just so you see where the city is located. So this is quite, you know, it's close to the front line, okay? About 25 miles, except I don't use the imperial system. So about 50... how many kilometers is that in metric system? Well, it's about, actually it's 25 kilometers, so it's 15 miles. There you go. Okay, in any case, let me read to you what they're saying about this, because right now the count is that you've 11 people killed, okay, and including 14-year-old twin sisters, a 17-year-old girl, and 61 people wounded, including a baby. Okay, so that number is probably going to change, unfortunately, because when you have incidents like this, you have attacks like that, the number grows. Or when earthquakes happen, you know, as they dig, they find more under the wreckage, unfortunately. Now, there are many aspects to this that I want to go through, okay? Because let me show you the Russians, what they're saying, and let me show you what Zelensky's saying, what the Ukrainians are saying, okay? This is the spokesperson for the Russian Defense Ministry. Let's take a look at what he said.
Kramatorsk Донецкой Народной Республики поражен пункт временной дислокации командного состава 56-й мотопехотной бригады Вооруженных сил Украины. Воздушно-космическими силами России нанесены удары высокоточным оружием по объектам нефтепереработки и хранения топлива, для обеспечения группировки вооруженных сил Украины на Донбассе. Все назначенные объекты поражены. Цель удара достигнута.
Okay, now let's play Zelensky. All right?
Слава Україні! Політичне та військове керівництво Росії не має уникнути правосуддя через те, що у них нібито є імунітет, як у керівників держави. Вони не керівники держави, вони бандити, які захопили контроль над державними інституціями Росії. І вони абсолютно знахабніли безкарності, від цієї безкарності та почали тероризувати весь світ. Сплячі джерела руйнації та смерті, так звані заморожені конфлікти. Будь-який заморожений конфлікт – це війна. Це війна, яка неодмінно розгориться. І питання лише в тому, коли та скільки життів вона забере. Тому мир...
So Zelensky goes off on a tirade, and you know, I guess you can't really blame him, but you know, he's still clinging on to this idea that Putin should not be given immunity at the BRICS summit, and that's what he was hinting at, and he was saying, you know, he's basically saying that there should be a tribunal, and Putin and you know, the rest of the Russian leadership, he just says the top brass basically should be put on trial. Okay, but what the hell's going on here? Because the Russians are saying that this was a military target. Was it a military target? I mean, some people are showing videos. I'm going to play them to you now, and claiming that because, you know, you have people speaking English there, that this shows they're mercenaries. I mean, just for the sake of argument, it doesn't really prove that at all. They could be anything. They could be journalists. They could be with Médecins Sans Frontières. They could be literally, I mean, anyone. What is the likelihood? Yeah, the likelihood is they're mercenaries. But it doesn't only mean that they're mercenaries. In any case, let me show you this video here.
Слава Богу. Look what these bastards are doing to this country. There's soldiers under this rubble all over.
Who is under the rubble? Soldiers? I'm sorry, that doesn't compute with me, because CNN just told me that, you know, Russia blew up a pizzeria with civilians in it. Actually, even CNN, if you actually go through and start digging, look what they say here. Being so near the fighting, the city is popular with soldiers seeking some respite from the fighting. So some people think that this guy who I just showed you was speaking, was narrating while filming. Some people said American. No, that guy's not American. He's not British either. You see, that's a South African accent. Okay, and anyone who knows it or who's from South Africa can hear it. I think this is the same guy, right? Because I'm in scouring and picking up videos and getting all this stuff ready to show you guys, and I found another video. Listen to his voice and the accent.
Listen to me very carefully, everybody in Konstantinivka. Grab the 2 oxygen bottles on the floor. Get every single torch that you can find. Anything.
South African, right? Even whether that's a different person as the one narrating is irrelevant, okay? So this guy's in military slacks, you know, he's in military fatigues. And the other one, so you got CNN, you got the people filming there, and you got on video and the Russians all saying that there are military personnel in this pizzeria, right, or restaurant. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Now, I have a feeling the Ukrainians are caught off guard because they might have been thinking that they can have a meeting here, or they can have, you know, so-called consultants, mercenaries. Okay, these are ex-special forces. Whether from South Africa or UK, I mean, what difference does it make, right? Because we know for a fact you have mercenaries and you have special forces, so you know they're getting paid to do the same job just by different people. But we know you have Western special forces and you have also mercenaries that are in Ukraine, just like Syria, right? Same thing. And the question now is that, well, does this make it a valid or, you know, a legitimate military target? Well, ultimately, that's going to be for the lawyers to decide. But I can tell you one thing, that in the Troubles, okay, so for those of you who don't know, that this is vaguely, it's the 30 years, right? So from the 60s until the 90s, in Northern Ireland, where you had all these these tit for tat, but I mean, it's from the Irish point of view, it's like it's one chapter, because this goes back many hundred years. It's one chapter to get British forces out of Ireland, right? So and you had the Good Friday Agreement, all that. I'm not going to go through this now. My point here is that back then, this was by both sides. Okay, so you had these Ulster paramilitaries that were backed by the British state, and on the other side, the IRA. Both of them understood that if there's a bar, there's a club, there's a disco, there's a restaurant, there's any venue, a civilian venue, mind you, that is frequented by British soldiers, then they're going to go blow it up. And it's a legitimate target because the British soldiers are occupying their land. They're occupying Ireland. So the fact that there are civilians there being injured, this is the fault of the British state for refusing to leave the country. Do you understand? So that was viewed as a legitimate military target. And then, of course, you know, Hillcrest Bar bombing, for example, that's another one where the British state, through these Ulster paramilitaries, they went and blew up this bar just because Catholics went there. It was on St. Patrick's Day. So they're not even IRA or any militants or armed, in any capacity. Just Catholic. Just blow them up because they're Catholic. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, oh yeah, well, this is normal, you know, like who cares? Because this is in wartime, these things happen. No, you should care because it's really horrible. But the thing is that this whole war, we know who started it. We know who put their foot down and went through with this thing. The Russians are the only ones who tried diplomacy this whole time. And it's the Ukrainians who even don't take my word for it. You can go look at Amnesty International if you want to trust the NGOs and so on. This is from last year, okay? This is August 4th, 2022. This is Amnesty talking about how Ukraine is setting up the Ukrainian military are endangering Ukrainian civilians by setting up military bases in residential areas, including schools and hospitals. They're launching attacks from populated civilian areas. And, they, of course, put this disclaimer here that it doesn't necessarily, just because the Ukrainians are doing that doesn't justify the Russians indiscriminately hitting civilians. But the thing is here that, they're not, if the Russians are responding to a residential area where attacks were launched from, that's not indiscriminate because you're admitting that yourself, that this is being turned into a military target by Ukraine, not Russia. So the same goes here for this restaurant. Okay? If the Ukrainians are bringing their mercenaries, well, I don't care if they're from South Africa or they're from the same country, from Ukraine itself, or they're bringing Ukrainian armed forces from the conventional armed forces. They're bringing any sort of military personnel into this place. That makes it a military target. And they know this. They're not stupid. They know this. And they've been doing this over and over. And do you remember last year there was this thing with the Kiev shopping center? You remember that? They said, oh, the Russians, they just randomly blew up a shopping center. Apparently they really hate, they hate everything to do with shopping centers and pizzerias. And then it came out that actually you had Ukrainian tanks being parked underneath the goddamn shopping center. So the Ukrainians turned the shopping center into a military target. And this is similar stuff you'd see in Syria. You have, I'm not going to go through the list again, but all these groups that are funded from, by Turkey, by Israel. Well, yeah, Israel helped them in any case, definitely with Al-Qaeda. Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UK, US, Germany, it's quite the list, right? They're all funding various groups in Syria, and then they would do the exact same thing where they're starting to hit the Syrian army from inside a residential area, and then the Russians go and they bomb it, and they say, oh, the Russians are just indiscriminately bombing residential areas in Syria. Where'd you get that from? Where'd you get that from? Right, same thing with the chemical attacks. Oh, I mean, that one doesn't make any sense and literally never happened. At least when we talk about this case here, both sides are saying, yes, there's a strike that took place. With the chemical attacks, don't even get me started. That's just a complete rubbish. Complete, absolute rubbish. So the conclusion here is that not everybody running around in Ukraine speaking English as an American. I don't know why people just like automatically assume they're Americans. This guy's clearly from South Africa, right? And we know that you have people from British Special Forces and so on and so on. All the Western countries going in and helping them, whether they're mercenaries or they are, because the mercenaries, they're working in these volunteer battalions, right? So-called, international legions. And then, let me just give you a counter argument here, because some people think that if you have somebody speaking English, then it was definitely a military target. Once again, no, this is irrelevant, what language they're speaking. The question here is, were there soldiers and military personnel convening in this establishment? Were they using it as a base of operations? Even if, let me explain this to you. If you have two officers who walk into a bar and they sit down and start planning something or discussing operations, they turn the venue into a legitimate military target. And they know this. They know the military law. They are not stupid. When you graduate, from whatever, I don't know what the Ukrainian equivalent of West Point or Sandhurst is, but when you are in the military, you know exactly what the military law is. They give you courses on this stuff. Okay? And so what I want to say here with the counter argument is that, you could have English journalists or doctors, whatever, running around. That's not the question here, right? But you do have people with insignia, so basically logos or patches from their battalions or regiments, or people wearing t-shirts and stuff. Again, I mean, that doesn't really prove anything. You can go on Amazon right now and buy a t-shirt with whatever. You can walk into a tattoo parlor and get a tattoo that says you're in the Marine Corps. Doesn't mean you're really from the Marine Corps. It's irrelevant, completely irrelevant. Once again, the question here is that, and which Zelensky he avoids and he doesn't address, because he says, oh, this is a barbarous act by the Russians and so on. Fine, okay. But what was going on here? Is this true that they were using this pizzeria as a base of operations? What the hell's going on? Like, the Ukrainians don't even address this. They don't even try to counter what the Russians are saying. I don't know. I mean, we're talking about national security. We're talking about international affairs, wars. These are enormous topics, and Zelensky is the head of state. So when he's going on and said, oh, we need a tribunal for the Russians and this and that. What about Kiev Shopping Center? What about this pizzeria? Is there any truth to what the Russians are saying? I just look at it this way. Here's another way to look at it. This Iskander missile, which is what was reportedly launched today, this costs $3 million a piece. Do you really think the Russian army are going to waste a $3 million rocket on a pizzeria? Just because they like blowing up civilians? Do you really believe that? Maybe you believe that. I don't see the military or strategic value in this, and there's too much of this. The Russians are so evil, and this dates back to before Ukraine. This goes back to Syria, right? So after the Russians entered the war, because the Russians kind of tipped the tide and really destroyed all of these groups. And yes, they of course they damaged a lot of Syria doing that. Yeah, that's the problem, is that it shouldn't have to take the Russians coming in and helping fight off Al-Qaeda for the situation to stop. A lot of these groups, they knew what they were doing. So my point here is that this goes back to in Syria, what they were doing before, accusing, the Russians are bombing hospitals because they just like bombing hospitals. The Syrian army, they also they go in helicopters and just randomly drop barreled explosives. I mean, come on, man. Where did you get this stuff from? It's not like they have an incentive here to lie to you about this stuff. Of course they do. Of course they do. So my job is to challenge these assertions and these claims, these blanket claims that are fed, for Western consumption, are fed to people in the West on a daily basis. That, Russia is evil because it's just evil and they just like doing evil things. This is childish to me. This is like some cartoon villain bullshit. If you want to go believe in that, go read some comic books or Batman or some shit. This is international affairs. You can't just believe what CNN says because they're CNN. Guess what? They have a track record of lying, and they do that all the time. And even Afghanistan. Remember, they said, the Russians are putting bounties on American soldiers. Also, complete nonsense. So I'm not going to believe them when they say this. I'm going to question it from a military point of view. Is this a legitimate target? Are the Russians do they really have this much money and weapons to just, launch and spend like that? I don't believe that. I don't believe this whatsoever. The Russians are not perfect, and they've committed, I've no doubt they've committed war crimes in Ukraine, just because that's how war is. You have both sides that are going to commit war crimes. And I was even showing you before when they were filming these Ukrainian soldiers, it's a violation of Geneva Convention. I don't care what anyone says. That's the law. You're not allowed to just put cameras in people's faces because they're POWs. And that's, both sides did this, okay? This is over a year now, but I'm sure it's going to happen again, unfortunately. My point here is that, when it comes to the Russians, they don't make money from these wars. It's not about money. If it were money, if there were an incentive to make money, then you could start questioning, well, yeah, actually, it makes total sense that they would just start randomly bombing people because they want to drop as many bombs and restock as much as possible. The rules of engagement, what are these rules of engagement? Are they relaxed? Are they strict? This is also another thing that you would ask. But in this case, again, you have CNN, you've got the people on the site all admitting that you have soldiers in this place. And unfortunately, that's the fault of the Ukrainian military. They are the ones who are endangering civilians by frequenting these venues, spending time in these venues. And they're not stupid. They know that the Russians are watching them. You remember at the beginning of the war, you had a bunch of morons who thought they were very smart, and they just like went all the way to Ukraine and started using their phones with British numbers. And the Russians, I mean, any police department in the world can do this, never mind the Russian military. They've got Stingrays, these devices that fit in a suitcase, and they can start monitoring your communications, SMS calls, your number, all of this stuff, just by opening it up in the car, right? It basically acts as a fake antenna, and your phone just, is none the wiser and just connects to it. And the Russians, they saw all these British numbers, and foreign numbers in a concentrated area, and they struck the damn thing. And who was telling people to go fight? The British government. I don't remember now if it was the foreign secretary or the home secretary. I showed you these videos. They're saying, yeah, we have nothing against people going and fighting in Ukraine. Well, guess what? You just killed a bunch of your own people. But I'm going off on a tangent here. There you go. Just to keep that in mind when you hear this stuff about Kramatorsk, which just happened today, and in the last 24 hours, and then the Kiev shopping center, and all these civilian targets, because every couple of weeks, if not days, they try to feed you this crap like, there's just people, Dr. Evil is working at the Russian MOD or something. One day the Russians are incompetent. They have no weapons. They've run out of drones and armaments. And then the next day, they have so much weapons to just splurge on and use against civilians. These are contradictions. These don't make sense. All right, let's keep going. Because I wanted to talk about this this next thing with Ukraine. I see we've got 1,400 people watching. Please, guys, make sure that you've hit the like button, because I only see 600 likes. One of you is saying, why did Zelensky say on Twitter the Kramatorsk incident was S-300 missiles? He did? What? S-300s are surface-to-air missiles, traditionally. I mean, I'm sure someone could maybe program it to do surface-to-surface, but I don't know why he would say that. That doesn't make any sense. And they were saying Iskanders. Yeah, Theron is saying if S-300 missiles hit civilians, then it was the Ukrainians. The Russians don't use anti-aircraft missiles to hit targets. Do you guys remember at the very beginning of the war last year, there was a residential building, so you know, a tower that was hit by if I'm not mistaken, it was an I don't know if it was S-300, but it was an anti-aircraft surface-to-air missile. And you know, it turned out that actually it was not the Russians, it was the Ukrainian anti-aircraft battery that had tried targeting a Russian plane, and instead it went through a residential building. So, you know, every one of these incidents, you have to question it, and you have to delve through the crap, because it's like in Syria. The whole time in Syria, oh my God, they bombed the hospital, they bombed this, they bombed that. You know, and if you look through enough of them, you'd see that at least half of them were bullshit, right? 1,400 people watching. We only have 800 likes, so please, guys, hit the like button. And let me continue with the next topic. So we've got a lot here about Ukraine, but also some other things. So hold on a second. Oh God, this was really cringy. This is really cringy. Let me pull this up, and in the meantime, please tell me where you're watching from, guys. Tell me in the comments what city you're in, what state. Are any of you in Russia or Ukraine? Okay, because when I started, we had fewer people. So there we go. We've got Moscow, London, Munich, Portugal, Canada, Belgium, Glasgow, Sydney, Stuttgart, Bosnia. It's gone. Canada, Ireland. It's too fast. I can't read it. New York, Norway, India, Virginia, Vienna, Peshawar, Australia, Moscow, Maine, Tahiti, Russia, Tokyo, Dallas. Wow, look at that. I love you guys. This is amazing. By the way, I'm just curious, is anyone watching from Pretoria or from Johannesburg or from Cape Town? Anyone from South Africa? I think I saw a couple of South Africans here. The video I played to you guys, he's South African, yes or no? Look, we've got Michael tuning in from South Africa. That guy's South African. I know. I just wanted extra confirmation, but I'm 99.9% sure. In any case, yeah. So Charlie, who says 100% South African. I told you. Some people they think that that because of some of the vowels, British. But no, that guy's South African. I already closed the video, so it doesn't matter. But okay, let's go on to the next topic. Guys, I have something so bad to show you. It's really, really bad. This is pure cringe. Really, just utter cringe. CNN, they published an article, okay, if you can even call it that. More like a rag. And they said Putin appears to be at his weakest in decades. I love this, man. Every day the Russians are so evil, but they're also really incompetent and dumb, you know, and it's like this constant contradiction. But let me go through some of the things that they said here. I did a thread on about this article on Twitter. It's just like comedy. It's pure comedy. Look, so they say here that this is about Prigozhin and Wagner and all this, right? They say that it is possible that Putin's special services will now pursue Wagner and its supporters slowly away from the glare of the last 2 days. Yet the Kremlin's solution to the problem was to climb down too. It's a move so antipathetic to everything Putin stands for, it can only suggest he had no other choice, that he lacked the forces to be sure he could hold Prigozhin back. Wow. Okay, guys, help me out. Let's do a little bit of math, okay? Prigozhin said he has 25,000, right? How many troops do the Russians have? Russian armed forces, the conventional ones. How many? Hundreds of thousands, right? And if you consider all the people that have been brought back into these partial drafts, right? We're talking about scores more troops than Wagner. And this moron thinks that Putin doesn't have enough forces to go after Prigozhin. So, you know, like out of some, some fantasy that Putin was too weak, that this is not like him, right? He had no other choice. Oh no. I mean, just being conservative. I'm being conservative with these estimates. The Russians, at least 700,000, right? 700,000 versus Prigozhin's 25,000. What is this garbage? Here, look at this. There's more stuff here. So then this absolute genius at CNN says that by letting Prigozhin go and apparently sweeping the entire insurrection under the carpet, Putin has appeared the weakest yet in 23 years. I mean, I don't know what to say here, man. This is really something else, because this person, whoever wrote this, they get the impression, you get the impression from the writing that for them diplomacy is weak. So help me handle this, help me tackle this, because if Putin had let's say he'd have crushed Prigozhin, okay, right? He brought in the drones, he sent in the MiGs, the Su-25s, and he'd made mincemeat out of this 25,000 strong force. What do you think this person would be writing then on CNN? Do you think that they will be saying, "Well done, Putin. Putin really showed him who's boss. Putin, he asserted himself." No. This person was saying, "Oh, Putin is such a brutal dictator. He crushed Prigozhin. How could he do this? He is a butcher." So you can't please these people, right? If you have like de-escalation, which is what Lukashenko was doing between Putin and Prigozhin, de-escalation. Everybody calm down. Let's negotiate. If you do that, this is weakness for them. And if you don't do that, I don't know. I guess it's also weakness for them. You can't police them, right? Who writes this crap? I mean, it's so bad. And they keep going. Look, this is more. Putin is at risk of losing his iron grip on power. The next 24 hours are critical. How can he? What do you mean losing his iron grip on power? Does he have one or not? If you have an iron grip on power, then you have an iron grip on power. It's not something you lose in 24 hours. Do you even know what this means? Iron grip on power. I mean, this is garbage. This is like something not even someone in high school would write. This is embarrassing. And I think it's the same person doing all of this. Jesus Christ. It's so bad. It's so bad. Look, he's saying that Prigozhin, hold on, where was this? Yeah, so now he says here that the rest of the world has seen this too, that they're weak, right? From Ukraine to NATO to Putin's allies. And then they write, notably some friends were quiet, Kazakhstan and Iran, both of whom owe Russia a past debt, call this an internal matter. This is not unqualified support. Okay, let me show you this now. Apparently, this person doesn't read their own outlets' stuff, because the same day, this is the same day, you have China throw support behind strategic partner Russia after Wagner insurrection challenges Putin. So, I think this person needs to, just take a deep breath and walk away from anything to do with writing and journalism. This is really, really cringy. And that's not true. The fact that Iran is saying this is an internal matter, that is throwing support behind Putin, because that says we're not going to we're not going to interfere and one way or the other. But what it really means is that we trust that the Kremlin will do whatever it takes to handle the situation. That's what it means. But this person is too dumb to understand that. And even while the Chinese are vocally coming out and saying we support Putin, all this stuff, they're not pleased with that. So, this is why you can't take mainstream media seriously, because they have no concept of analysis of diplomacy, of politics. What can I say? This hurt me. I was sitting there reading through this crap. This hurt my brain and my heart. This hurt me, guys. You see what I go through for you? I have to dig through all this crap. It's so bad. It's really so bad. And when they say let Prigozhin go, Prigozhin was not let go. Prigozhin was exiled. Do you understand that? Maybe they refer to it differently. Just being politics being politics. But, you have to call a spade a spade. Prigozhin is exiled. He's not coming back to Russia. He has no career, no more prospects in Russia. Okay? He is lucky, actually, frankly, he's really lucky that the charges are dropped and he gets to go to Belarus. It's an exile. And that is not letting someone go. That's kicking somebody out. So, letting somebody go means no consequences. There are consequences. They're just not legal ones. So instead of, hitting him with these charges, keeping him in prison and going through all this process, the charges are dropped. But there is a consequence. You leave Russia. You are out. And you're lucky that Belarus takes you in. Okay? So once again, nobody's being let go. And when it comes to Wagner as an entity, as a group, as a corporation, I'm gonna get into that in a second now, because for those of you who are watching on replay, just click on the next video. But now we're doing it live, so I'm gonna go ahead and tackle that. Okay, give me a second. I'm switching through a million things. All right, hold up. Okay. Honestly, man, Prigozhin owes me reparations because I was, I didn't sleep because of this goddamn whatever the hell you want to call it. I mean, they're saying it was a coup. It wasn't a coup. But I reported on it. I covered it. Now let's deal with the aftermath. What's happened subsequently. Here's Putin giving his shall we say second speech, because he gave one in the immediate aftermath, but this was afterwards when he was thanking the Russian armed forces and where he made clear the conditions under which Wagner can exist or shall exist, if at all.
Благодарю тех солдат и командиров группы «Вагнер», которые приняли единственно правильное решение. Не пошли на братоубийственное кровопролитие. Остановились у последней черты. Сегодня у вас есть возможность продолжить службу России, заключив контракт с Министерством обороны или другими силовыми органами. Либо вернуться к своим родным и близким. Кто хочет, сможет уйти в Белоруссию. Данное мною обещание будет исполнено. Повторю, выбор.
Right, so this goes back to what I was telling you guys. I knew this was going to cause some trouble when I was telling you about this a few weeks ago. I knew something was going to come. I didn't make any predictions or something, but I told you guys this is a power struggle right now, because the contracts, when Shoigu, the defense minister, when he is saying you have to sign this, and then Putin is backing him up, it's for real. Putin is basically there to say, don't screw around with me and stop wasting my time. You have a deadline. You sign this contract and Wagner is gone. You are fully incorporated into the Russian military. When that happened, that was clear that from the beginning, Prigozhin was saying, no, we're not signing it. He doesn't have a choice anymore. Putin is not speaking to Prigozhin here. Prigozhin is a done deal. He's exiled to Belarus, finished. He's lucky to even go there, right? As we were just saying. Now Putin is talking to the fighters. So if we take Prigozhin at his word, he was saying 25,000. Okay, let's say 25,000. Whether that, that's an exaggeration or it's a conservative estimate, doesn't matter. Putin is speaking to these 25,000, and he's saying, if you want, you can keep fighting. And you don't even have to, he's not even saying the military necessarily. He said other law enforcement agencies, whatever that means. It's a very, it's, it's a broad term here. What does he mean? Like prison guards or, highway traffic cops? I don't know. It could be anything, but he's giving them basically a way out. And then he's also saying you can go back to your families. And he also says Belarus. Maybe one of you, maybe some of you who are Russian speakers, can tell me exactly how he said it, because it's not clear. And to this very minute where I'm streaming to you guys, tried looking this up. There has been no further comment other than this. It's not clear whether Putin is saying you can take your families and go to Belarus if you don't want to join the army, or you can go back to your families in Russia, and you have the third option of going to Belarus, right? So join the army, go back to home to your families in Russia, or go to Belarus. I'm not sure what he means with these last two options. If he means take your families and go to Belarus, or you can stay in Russia and or Belarus. I hope that's clear. Maybe some of you can clear it up. You know, just being Russian native speakers, how he put it, because language is everything. Let me play the rest of this, what he's saying here, because here he thanks Lukashenko.
Признательны президенту Беларуси Александру Григорьевичу Лукашенко за его усилия и вклад в мирное разрешение ситуации. Но повторю, именно патриотизм.
Right, so I'm interrupting him because a lot of you guys in the comments are saying that he meant all three. Thank you. I appreciate you guys clearing that up, because, you know, the nuance and language is very important. So yeah, just to from what you guys are telling me, then you have all three options, because you see with Prigozhin being now in Belarus, you have some Baltic states that are complaining, right? Let me show you from Reuters. Latvia and Lithuania are asking for NATO to strengthen its eastern borders in response to expectations that Russia's Wagner will set up a new base in Belarus. Okay? The Latvian foreign minister said, quote, "This move needs to be assessed from a different security point of view. We have seen the capabilities of those mercenaries." So let me introduce you now to another theory that people have. And I have to pull up the map so you can see this, okay? You have some people, again, this is pure speculation. It's pure speculation. So whether it's true or not, we'll see in good time. But here, let me show you what they're saying, that you see here, Belarus is to the north of Ukraine. Okay, I hope you can see my pointer clearly, my cursor. Belarus is to the north of Ukraine. So, you know, but instead of being here, down here in Donbass, now they've kind of flanked, you know, from the east, they've flanked the Ukrainian forces up to the north. So some people are saying, well, this is actually, it's a ruse, you know. Prigozhin is still, he's cool with the Kremlin, they're on good terms, and he's going to go set up camp up there. In any case, it's enough for as you can see, some of NATO member states to you know, to be alarmed. Now, once again, I have no clue whether this is true or not. If it is, it's quite smart. But again, this is pure speculation. If it's true, though, yeah, it's not a bad idea from a military point of view, you know, from strategy, because ostensibly on the surface, you would think that Wagner is finished, because Putin is very clearly saying you either you join the Russian armed forces or other law enforcement, or you're done. You go back to civilian life. You go home to your families. You can also go to Belarus. What does that mean exactly, right? We'll see in good time. But I'm just making you aware of what some NATO countries are hinting at. Okay. Let me show you also, this is a clip from this is from the same speech from Putin, and it's important because, you know, we were speculating and trying to find out when I was covering this. I was telling you that, you know, so far there have been no clashes, and Prigozhin himself is saying we stopped this, you know, justice march, or march for justice as he called it. You know, he stopped this because he didn't want to spill any Russian blood. Well, it turns out some Russian blood has been spilled. Look. Why you gotta buffer, Putin? Come on. Don't do that to me, man.
Реванш за свои неудачи на фронте. Благодарю всех наших военнослужащих, сотрудников правоохранительных органов, специальных служб, которые встали на пути у мятежников. Сохранили верность долгу, присяге и своему народу. Мужество, самопожертвование павших героев-летчиков.
So you see he mentions pilots.
берегли Россию от трагических, разрушительных последствий. Вместе с тем, мы знали и знаем.
Okay, and now he says he's basically he's trying to butter up people in Wagner and say, I know you're not traitors, and but my point here is that they shot down a helicopter from what I from what we know up until this point. Wagner shot down a Russian armed forces helicopter. Okay, and it's not clear how many people were in the helicopter, but at least the pilots that he's mentioning. And now I'm going to give you Prigozhin, because we didn't hear anything from Prigozhin, right? He was, when I say we didn't hear anything, there was no rant or speech, like he, in his usual fashion and manner. But now he put out an 11-minute voice, voice clip, an audio clip, a voice memo, and he put that out on Telegram. And this is what he said. Okay, so because as usual, I want to give you both sides of each side of every story.
Марш мы начали из-за несправедливости. По дороге на земле мы не убили ни одного солдата. За сутки не дошли всего 200 километров до Москвы, зашли и полностью взяли под контроль город Ростов. Мирные жители были рады нас видеть. Мы показали мастер-класс, каким образом должно было выглядеть 24 февраля 2022 года. У нас не было цели свержения существующего режима и законно избранной власти, о чем много раз говорилось. Развернулись мы для того, чтобы не проливать кровь русских солдат.
Okay, so again, keep in mind, this is according to the Ukrainians, so take it with a pinch of salt, just because they're not, the Ukrainians don't have access to Russia's internal, briefs and reports. And so just to tell you, according to the Ukrainians, Wagner shot down 6 Russian helicopters and killed 13 Russian soldiers. Again, I don't know if that's, and look, 25,000 strong, and with all the funding that they received, which I'm going to show you in a second, how much funding Wagner received in just 1 year. It's definitely possible, but is it true? I'm just telling you what the Ukrainians are saying. I don't think the Russians officially, the defense ministry put out these figures. So take it with a pinch of salt, but definitely Putin himself is saying they killed some Russian pilots, which is, that's not what Prigozhin said he wanted, but it's very serious. It's very serious. Take a look at how much they were funded, to the tune of how much they were funded.
Держание всей группы Вагнер полностью обеспечилось государством. Из Министерства обороны, из государственного бюджета мы полностью финансировали эту группу. С мая 22 года по май 23 на денежное содержание и стимулирующие выплаты государство заплатило компании «Вагнер» 86 миллиардов 262 миллиона рублей.
I mean, that's enormous, right? That is enormous. Here's Lavrov, the foreign minister. Look at what he said.
Оценки минской роли даны были уже давно лично президенту Лукашенко, который, как Дмитрий Песков объяснил неоднократно и подробно, высказался в телефонном разговоре с президентом Путиным в субботнее утро, постараться разрешить эту ситуацию миром, избежать большого кровопролития, которое неизбежно произошло бы в случае, если бы отряды мятежников продолжали движение на Москву. Это предложение было поддержано президентом Путиным, и результат вам известен, о нем объявлено еще вчера представителем Кремля. Оценки.
Here's another clip.
Если доказательства того, что ни украинская, ни западные разведслужбы не были никак замешаны в восстании?
Я работаю в ведомстве, которое не занимается сбором доказательств.
Lavrov is such a diplomat. Come on, spit it out, man. Just spit it out. Spit the answer. This is the problem with diplomats. You know, they're very good at... He's one of the best at what he does.
Доказательств о совершаемых противоправных действиях, но у нас есть такие структуры, и, уверяю вас, они уже в этом разбираются.
Yes,
I mean, look, again, very simply, I don't think... Because the question was, do you think there's a Western intelligence agency that had any part in this? Of course, of course. That doesn't mean they started it necessarily, but if you do you really think MI6 and CIA and you know all the and Mossad, they just like stood there and let things happen? No, that's what they tell you officially from the State Department, and the State Department, all the people in this working there were briefed to shut up about this because they didn't want to look like they're pulling or lending their support to one side or the other. But yeah, of course they're going to exploit the situation. The Russians would do the same, and vice versa. Of course, that's their job. But that doesn't mean that we don't have proof of that. Okay, we're just speculating. Let me tell you another thing, because if we go back to what the Baltic states are saying, okay. There seems to be this idea that Putin and Prigozhin have this good cop, bad cop strategy. Do you know what that means? That means when you're in trouble with the police, one of the cops is going to be nice to you, and the other cop is going to be very mean to you and very is going to try and upset you and put you on edge. And then the other cop, the good cop, so-called good cop, is going to come as and approach you as some kind of savior, and then extract information or get what they want from you, whatever it is. Okay, now again, anything is possible at this point. Everybody's just speculating. Is this true that Wagner are going to go set up in Belarus and then have a flank on have Ukraine's northern flank covered? Who the hell knows? Here's another thing that I would add to this is that Russia already put nuclear weapons in Belarus. Do you really need Wagner to complete the whole thing? The nuclear weapons matter way more than Prigozhin and his 25,000. Do you understand? We know for a fact that the Russians put nuclear weapons to Ukraine's north. That is all that matters. Whether Wagner comes in addition, maybe. Okay, that's an added bonus, but it's not the defining factor of whether they've got Ukraine's eastern and northern flanks covered. Okay, from a military perspective. So I just wanted to kind of give you a wrap up of a brief of what happened right after, because it's again, as I said the other day, what was the point of all this? In the end, they still have to sign these contracts or they go back to civilian life. I mean, again, whether they do this in Belarus undercover, who the hell knows, man? No one knows that for sure. We really don't know that for sure. Anything is possible, but let's leave it at that. Because Prigozhin, he himself is definitely in Belarus. He's not coming back for now. At least not ostensibly. Now, whether you have 25,000 people going there, trust me, if they do that, you will be the first to know, and I'll be the first to come tell you. But that's not going to go and happen unnoticed. And the nuclear weapons are the most important thing. In case you were wondering, what's the strategy here? Do they have Ukraine's flank, their northern flank covered? Yeah, they already do. This is quite a while. Actually, one more thing that I would add is, don't worry, I've got more to say about Ukraine, but just one more thing. You guys have to remember that Wagner, they have provided their services, right, to a number of African countries and Syria. So Syria, Sudan, Central African Republic, and Mali, so in the Sahel region. And, when you have people in the West whining about, oh my God, Russia is taking over Africa with Wagner. Hold on a second. What is Wagner doing in Africa? They're cleaning up the terrorists that the West allowed to ferment, right? The terrorism they allowed to ferment and the terrorists that they funded. If you go back to 2011, when they killed Gaddafi, right? 2011, 2012, just before this period, because Syria, the Syrian war starts in 2011. So it's the same period of so-called Arab Spring. Did you have this problem in the Sahel before that? Did you? To this extent? No, of course not. You're always going to find issues and little cracks. But just pay attention to when they start to become really big regional problems in the entire Sahel region. So this is, when they say Sahel, this is like basically right, you know, where sub-Saharan Africa begins, okay? Mali and so on. So if anyone, you know, you're mad at Wagner being there in the first place, like, you know, go complain to the ones that killed Gaddafi and allowed all this terrorism to spread, because Libya and Syria, they become like, you know, safe havens for these extremist groups, because they know there is no order anymore. There is no government anymore. We can just go there and do whatever the fuck we like. You know, we can all of these, you know, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all of these groups. They take advantage of situations created by Western governments. Fact. Period. The other thing is, the question now is, if Wagner is disbanded, ostensibly or truly, what does this mean for these countries that have purchased or solicited Wagner's services? I don't know. I don't know what this means, because, you know, my initial reaction would be that the Russians will help them out by substituting whatever Wagner troops are there with their own from the Russian MOD, or they will simply put pressure on the ones that are already there, make them sign contracts, incorporating them into the MOD anyway, right? I assume that the ones who are there want to keep getting paid, and they will sign the contracts. Again, I'm speculating, but this is just my, if I may say, my informed analysis of this question. And the other thing is that, you know, when it comes to China, and this is a side note here, you know, they say China is taking over Africa, right? Well, hold on a second. What is China doing that is bad? What, this so-called debt trap? This is quote unquote debt trap. You know, come on. I don't think any respectable person in the West has a right to start criticizing China and comparing that to you know, to actual debt traps and plundering. Like, you know, these African countries, a lot of them, they haven't even recovered from French and Belgian and you know, Dutch and British colonialism. So even if hypothetically you believe that China is doing something bad in Africa, which it's not, you know, even if you believe that, how do Western countries have a right to criticize? They should go worry about paying back reparations, you know, for countries that were enslaved, plundered, occupied. They should worry about that, yeah, because the Chinese are actually giving infrastructure and making deals instead of, you know, punching them down, you know, taking their resources by force. And you know, debt trap is something the IMF and World Bank are very good at. Yeah. So let's worry about them. I think China is, it's just more propaganda, you know, and they try to lump these two things together. Oh my God, Russia and China are taking over Africa. Shut the hell up. Let's talk about Zelensky. This is very interesting, right? Okay, give me a sec. How many people we tuned in? 1,800 people. Welcome to all of you, and please make sure that you've pressed the thumbs up, the like button, and I appreciate the donation here from Basil. It says free Gonzalo Lira. Is he in custody again? Jesus Christ. Free Pablo Gonzalez also, right? But he yeah, it's a well, is it a separate issue? Not really. I mean, Poland's next door, and they did it 5 days after the you know, the war exploded, and there's a lot of you know, just I'm speaking generally, and this is not just about Assange, but Assange is included. I think European countries are getting a lot bolder with this, right? They're getting a lot more comfortable publicly just crapping on journalists, you know? And I want to show you something here. This is a point I wanted to bring up, and I'm glad I remembered now. You guys see, hold on, this video that I posted yesterday. Let me pull this up. Yeah, so I posted this video yesterday on Twitter and on YouTube. Now here's the thing. As I wrote here, I had to title it differently, okay, on YouTube. You know why? Because every time I bring up Assange's name in you know, I give updates about his case and so on. What happens is that every video posted after that, well, okay, well, first of all, the Assange video will get throttled. Every video posted after that on the same day will also get throttled. And then the next day, they also throttle the videos. So when I say throttle, I mean that they will basically, suppress the videos. They will make sure that people don't get notifications, right? So you will not get a video notification for this video about Assange or the ones after. And, you know, I find that ridiculous because, dude, I'm covering, like, I'm one of the court reporters on his case. So how can I not talk about his case? I'm one of the people reporting on it. So it's and you know, even if I weren't, I would still bring it up because it's an important case. But like, this is my work, literally my work, you know. And I think that says a lot because they even do this more than when I bring up Palestine, which is incredible because usually you would expect the Palestinian ones to get suppressed even further, you know, because traditionally speaking, this is a topic that is not allowed to be mentioned on mainstream media, on legacy media, so print, TV, radio, and then online. You know, when they discovered that you have independent media kind of taken over, they created this fiasco where, you know, they will they made it out to be like it's some bad influence. And now who gets priority on YouTube? It's CNN, it's MSNBC, it's Fox News, all of these mainstream media channels, BBC, you know, they get priority now when it comes to the algorithm. Okay, so I don't know. I thought to mention this to you guys because it's outrageous. It's just insane. And you know, like I said here, Assange in my titles affects the algorithm, maybe even worse than the word Palestine, which is really saying something. Yeah. This is why right now I'm streaming on Rumble, on Rockfin, and Odyssey. I need to get set up as well. But, you know, make sure you guys are subscribed, not just on YouTube, but the other platforms, just in case, you know, just to be safe. And if you want to make sure you get notifications when I go live, of course, you can click on this bell icon, but there's also a form you can fill in. Well, it's literally one box, and you'll get notified by email. So it's richardmedhurst.substack.com. You just type in your email and that's it. Just so you know. Okay, let's go and talk about Zelensky in Ukraine now because he never fails to deliver, right? Okay. So Zelensky, the great champion of European democracy and values, whatever that means, has decided to cancel and suspend the elections. And then you'll have people who say, but he has to because you cannot have elections under martial law. I'll get to that in a second. I just want to show you the clip. He was on BBC, and that's when the question was posed, right?
Чи будуть в Україні наступного року вибори?
Це ж питання глобальне. І якщо ми
Did you see his face? It's like when teacher asks you for your homework. It's like, this is a global question. I really don't know what happened.
Це ж питання глобальне. І якщо ми переможемо, то будуть. Значить, не буде військового часу, не буде війни. А вибори повинні проходити у мирний час, коли немає війни, згідно законодавства. І тому це так.
Чи будуть в Україні?
So that's his response, right? And yes, it's true that legally under martial law, elections are suspended. I think I know not just in Ukraine, but in many countries. But I just want to give you some background information, because in Ukraine, the martial law was first declared back in February of last year in 2022, and it's renewed every 3 months, okay? So right now, the current period will last until, I think, August 18th of 2023, okay? And then Zelensky can once again renew martial law. See, this is the thing, because if this were the only thing suspended, you might give him, the benefit of the doubt and say, well, yeah, he's at war, the country's at war, so fair enough. The thing is, though, that Zelensky, every couple of months, he does something like this, right? So you remember that he banned religious groups with links to Russia, which is really insane. And this is December of 2022, right? So, this is like basically carte blanche. It's a blank check to just like throw priests in prison. And how the hell do you ban religious organizations linked to Russia? I mean, this is Ukraine, right? It's not just like some random country somewhere else in the world. This is a country that is Russia's neighbor, right? You have the Orthodox Church, so you're basically outlawing religion for a giant swath of the population. Now, let me give you another example. Okay, so you guys remember when Zelensky he banned all other political parties? So this was when was this? This is March of 2022. I'm sorry, it's hard to keep track, and it's my job. He banned all political parties, right? Very practical. And he consolidated the media, right? So no more media allowed. It's just like one state narrative. Here's another thing. This is from just a few days ago. You know what he did? He banned Russian books. So this is 22nd of June. Okay, so book imports from Russia, Belarus, and he means Donbass, I assume. This any published materials from those regions are completely banned. So he's got like the trifecta: ban elections, right? Ban books, and ban all other political parties and media. Well done. So this guy is like apparently the champion of democratic values, and this is really, it's difficult to wrap your mind around this, because the reason why Ukraine should be supplied all these weapons and given like, what is it now, $100+ billion? It will be. The reason for that is that Ukraine needs to fight Russia, because Russia is authoritarian. Russia is an aggressor, and if we don't do that, then basically this veil of authoritarianism and despotism will take over the entire world, right? It's not exactly like let's contain communism, but it's somewhere along those lines, and it works very well, because you can pick any place in the world, any region in the world, and people in the West are just going to believe this nonsense, right? So, the reason the United States has to go into Iraq is because of 9/11, but also because he's a dictator and he has chemical and biological weapons of mass destruction, and for the sake of democracy, like even if you don't believe that he has weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, just for the sake of freedom and democracy, America should go in, because America is the world's policeman, and Uncle Sam is the United States is the leader of the free world, as they say. Yugoslavia, same thing. Why is this important? Why should NATO bomb Yugoslavia? Because of freedom and democracy, right? Why should Assad be toppled? Why should Assad, they all say Assad must go, and then actually they're the ones who go. Why should Assad go? Because of democracy, right? Syria needs free and fair elections. They always throw this term in your face, free and fair elections. And when Syria does have elections, they say, oh, well, it doesn't count. It doesn't count, even before it happens, it doesn't count, because they have crystal balls in the White House and in Whitehall where they can just see that the results will be fake. Amazing, right? And then when it comes to Libya, Gaddafi has to be killed and lynched, like literally lynched, because he's a dictator. And for freedom and democracy, the freedom fighting rebels have to be backed. So pick any place in the world, and you're gonna find this bullshit about, we have to give these people that are lunatics a bunch of weapons because of freedom and democracy. Okay, so what happened to freedom and democracy? Where are the free and fair elections for Ukraine? What does that mean? We will have elections when we win. What if you never win? That's what Zelensky said, right? When we win. What does that mean? Tomorrow? In a year? Can you tell us what you see in the crystal ball? Are you going to win in 20 years? These wars, dude, go look at Lebanon. Lebanon is a completely different story, but just as an analogy, you know how long the war went on for there? 30 years civil war. So what does this mean when we win? What if you don't win? What then? And if you're so confident, in your party that you banned all the other parties, if you're so confident in what you're doing, well, I guess you don't need elections, which is pretty much where he's going with this, right? I don't know how you could even have elections when you've banned all the other parties. So I guess I should just, this whole video is pointless, right? Zelensky's got it. He's he's got his whole agenda written down. He's ready. He's ready to go. So once again, who decides that the war is over? What happens? Does that mean when you've gotten enough money? Is there a timeline here? Nothing. It's just whatever. So I just want to show you this and tell you about this because it's not just giving you the news. It's the context and the whole premise of and debunking the entire premise of, Ukraine has to be supported because it's not just Ukraine's fight, it's our fight. Why? Because of democracy. Well, there's not much democracy in Ukraine, right? I mean, the way things are, I don't know how you can call any of this behavior that I just showed you, banning books, banning religions, or shall we say any Orthodox Church, basically, right? Russian Orthodox Church, banning political parties, banning other media. How is any of this democratic? And every time he did these things, when they happened, I told you the same thing. This guy's a bullshitter, and the people backing him are also bullshitters. How do people go on the news, and present the news on all of these channels and just have a straight face about this? It's astonishing to me. It's astonishing. There's no pushback from her, I know this was a 24-second clip, but I watched the whole interview. There's no pushback from her. There's no response. Well, don't you think, don't you think that's a long time? What if you don't win? When are you going to win? How can you have elections when you ban the other parties? Nothing, not a word, not a goddamn word. This was actually her last question when you're kind of waving goodbye to the guest. This was her last question. Oh, by the way, when are you going to have elections? Jesus Christ. Honestly, I'm not even saying that the guy wouldn't win. Maybe he would win because, if you're a wartime prime minister or leader, sometimes it can increase your popularity. I mean, depends where. They don't do too well in Germany, but it can in some cases, especially if you're winning. But I don't know how. This is a conflict of interest here, and they think that they say supporting Ukraine makes the world safer. No, it doesn't. It's we have people who are just interested in making money off of weapons sales, and these are the same people that make foreign policy decisions. For example, you could take the U.S. Defense Minister, right, or Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. This guy comes from Raytheon. They make weapons for a living. They kill people for a living, and they make a killing doing it, right? Quite literally. So, what's the aim here? What's the end game? Is this going to go on for as long as Iraq did, or is it going to be 5 years, 1 year? When are they satisfied? When do they satisfy their appetite? Because Afghanistan barely just finished, and I guarantee you CIA are still in there. Afghanistan barely finished, and then the situation in Ukraine explodes, and they get this war that they've been craving for, where they can finally kill Russians. They can make money killing Russians. Hit two birds with one stone, or rather, two Russians with one storm shadow. I guess I just coined a new phrase there, but this is a goal that they've been wanting to execute for a long time. And I don't think they want this war to end. And you might be stunned or shocked hearing that. Like, what do you mean that Zelensky doesn't want the war to end? I thought Ukraine is a massive victim of this. Yeah, that's the thing. Ukraine is a massive victim of the... Ukraine is the biggest victim out of this entire conflict is actually Ukraine. But the thing is that these people, Zelensky, Lloyd Austin, Ben Wallace, you know, all these leaders that are running the war, and it's actually being run in Washington, London, they have zero interest in ending it. So... no, I don't think there are going to be any elections anytime soon. And, you know, I think if you want to support Ukraine, fine. But don't insult people's intelligence and then say, we have to do this because Ukraine is so democratic and Ukraine is so this and that. Really, how come Ukraine was never let into the EU? Well, how come Ukraine is still not in NATO? You know, they basically want to keep dangling this in front of Ukraine and use Ukraine as a vehicle. But they don't actually care about Ukraine, right? I mean, calling this a democracy, it's a joke. It's a joke. You don't have to like the Russians, but don't bullshit me, okay? Don't insult people's intelligence. This guy is not interested in democracy. There's nothing to do with that. Okay, guys, let me continue. We have some more we have some more things here. So how many of you are tuned in right now? We've got 1,700. So thank you guys very much. And just give me a second to read your super chats because some of you sent them, and I was busy doing my thing, so I couldn't read them. Give me a sec. Raphael says, bro, is Putin too much of a Gandhi-like leader? I mean, I don't really know what you mean with that, but no, I think they're quite different. What do you mean? The Crazy Puppet says David the Legend. Zelensky Peace Duke. Well, it's good to see you, Crazy Puppet. I'm glad you're here, and thanks to everybody who's tuning in on Rumble as well and on Rockfin. That's very good. And give me a second. I'm setting up the next segment.
The war didn't start in February last year.
Yeah.
The war started in 2014. And since 2014, NATO allies have provided support to Ukraine.
NATO was going to shoot Putin in the foot either fucking way. So you have another terrorist attack in Ukraine. This time it's the Kakovka Dam. And the first thing the media do is blame the Russians. So let's see why the Russians would do it. They control the dam. They control the region. They need the dam to funnel water to Crimea, which is also under Russian control. They literally have zero motive. There is no motive. You know, the Washington Post in December published an article showing how Ukraine targeted this dam using American missiles, using the HIMARS system. They actually fired a missile at this dam to test if they could flood areas. Sound familiar? This is the same thing that we saw with the Nord Stream pipeline attacks, right? The first thing the press do is let's go and blame Russia. And now, almost a year later, the Washington Post finally admits that Ukraine, not Russia, Ukraine blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. This is something that I, myself, and others have been saying since the very beginning. Anyone with half a brain knew that it was not Russia. Russia would not blow up their own pipeline. But, you know, this was dismissed as a crackpot conspiracy theory that NATO would maybe do this, or Ukraine. No, that's Russian propaganda. And another example, the Nazi patches. This week, the New York Times also finally admit that Ukrainian soldiers en masse are wearing Nazi patches to the point that Western journalists have to ask them to hide the patches before they take photos of them. I mean, this is despicable on another level. And then later they claim that these are authentic photos. This is not journalism. This is curated propaganda. So are the New York Times and Washington Post doing propaganda now, right? They're doing Russian disinformation. These people are not doing journalism, all right? You guys are a year late. Only publishing the truth when nobody cares anymore, that's not journalism, okay? They are the ones doing disinformation. They are the ones... Okay, I'm sorry to cut myself off, but I want to get to the next segment. So there's just one last video I'm looking for. This was... hold on, I think this was TF... where the hell was this? Well... In any case, I think we can go ahead without it. It's fine. Let me fill you guys in on so let me explain the situation in France to you guys. Okay, so in Nanterre in Paris, there's a 17-year-old boy who was shot dead by the police, and it was filmed on yes, someone who was just a bystander filmed it, and of course the police lied about it, you know. So his name, the boy's name is Naël, okay, and he was I think of Algerian descent, and you know, basically the police said that he refused to stop after he committed a bunch of traffic violations and he didn't have a license. Okay, now here's the thing. I mean, I haven't done this, but I'm sure we got how many 2,000 people watching right now. I'm sure that some of you have driven a car before you had your license. Yes, right? And yeah, I mean, you shouldn't do that. But I want to ask you a question here. Do you think that this is a normal reaction to shoot somebody in the head at point blank range because they don't have their license? Because that's what happened, and the police lied. They said, oh, that he tried to ram them with a car. That's not what the video shows. That is a goddamn lie. And now, actually, they arrested the cop, and they're charging him with manslaughter. So here, this is where this happened. Okay, you can see here, Nanterre in this district over here. Okay, it's not exactly near La Défense, but it's, you know, sort of. La Défense is the business district in Paris. So, you know, people are going nuts. People are going nuts after this, because this is not the first time that you know, the police do this, and it's quite similar to. Well, I'll go into that in a second. Let me just show you what's going on. Look, people here are throwing stuff at the police. You know, I don't know what the hell they're throwing, rocks, bricks, doesn't matter, but you get the idea. It looks like, you know, urban warfare. I mean, look at this. I'm not gonna lie, the fireworks are kind of cool. But you know, in case you guys didn't know, when the police or the government misbehave in France, the immediate reaction is to burn cars. This is what people do. It's just the way it is, and you know, take it or leave it. But you know, that's how it is. Here, this is from my outlet, from In Context. Here, I got more stuff for you over here. Yeah, this one. I have like 50 million images open and videos. So they have 2,000 police now on standby, okay? So the French government have put 2,000 police on alert because they, you know, they know that they screwed up. And I mean, this kid was executed like you know, point blank, like, I mean, not even 1 meter, right? And I don't know how much I can show you because of the censorship
on YouTube, and it's really annoying. But you know, it was bad. It was bad. Here's his mother. So this is his mother. I don't know who she was streaming with, but somebody had her on.
Je prends un McDo, je suis partie travailler comme tout le monde. 1 heure après, on me dit que quoi? On a tiré sur mon fils. Je vais faire quoi? Je vais faire quoi? Je vais pour lui, je lui ai acheté tout. Je lui ai tout donné, tout donné, tout donné. Pour qu'un fils de pute, il me retire mon fils. Il lui met... Non.
She said, I went to work, and then an hour later, people tell me my son is dead, and I gave everything for my son, just so some asshole can put a bullet in his head. So, you know, now you have this very similar dynamic in the that you see in the U.S., where you have you know, the police unions protecting the killer, right? The cop, and then the reaction, even from the president, right? So Emmanuel Macron, he said that it's inexcusable. However, they always tell people, like, but you have to calm down and let the, you know, let the, you know, just let justice do its thing. Let the courts sort this out. And I mean, I don't know what to say to that. I think that's nonsense, because, you know, when the police in France, when they passed this law in 2017, okay, you guys maybe don't know about this, but in 2017, they passed a law relaxing the rules of engagement, if you will. Okay, so they basically gave carte blanche for the police to just open fire on you know, people that are threatening them, whatever the hell that means, and on vehicles that they, you know, that they say are threatening them. Now, in this case, it's so obvious that this guy was murdered that they can't even go with this, you know. But I want you to understand that this is the framework within which the police are operating. Okay, so there is a difference between a legitimate right to self-defense and then just executing somebody. But because of this law in 2017, the rules are lax. They are, you know, abstract, and that, you know, that's why people are angry. And you know, and bringing up this law now, because it's not the first time that this happens. And you know, since they passed this law in 2017, you've had a rise and increase in shootings, of course. And then what do the police say? The police say, well, it's not our fault because there's been an increase in people refusing to comply. Once again, I ask you this. I ask the question: is it reasonable to execute someone at point blank range because they wouldn't stop their car? I mean, are you running a counterterrorism operation, or are you traffic police? Because if you think you're you know, you're in the in counterterrorism, you know, you're in the wrong place, and you're in the wrong, you know, you should really go and switch and try to apply there, because you know, I'm sorry, but this guy doesn't look like much of a threat. You know, I saw the video and there's nothing going on there. You know, they say, oh well, he started the engine again. So what? Why you murder someone because they turn on their engine? What kind of fucking logic is that? Jesus, like, what kind of threshold is this madness? This is insane. You know. I mean, if you're gonna do that, then just say, yeah, like, I want to, you know, I enjoy doing this sort of thing, or I think that's acceptable. But it's not democratic. It's not just. It's not reasonable. It's not. I mean, it's even the president is saying it's inexcusable. And then, you know. You heard that? So I can translate. Somebody in the background was yelling like, "Are you guys nuts? You killed a 17-year-old boy!" And then the cop says, "Go back to Africa." So, you know, this is the kind of crap that it's not too different. You know, it's not too different. from what you see in other places, right? You catch my drift? So, you know, I think, you know, people are angry, then people are burning cars. Well, don't murder people then. I don't know. This is when people are burning cars and going nuts like this, it's because you have they don't have any trust in the you know, justice system. They have no trust in the police. They have no trust in the government, and so this is the only avenue of recourse that they have left. And you must ask yourself, you know, who's to blame for that? Because the police are fine. You know, nothing happened to the two cops. It was two in the video. They're completely fine and safe and sound, you know. But you know, this kid is dead, shot in the head at point blank range. Really, like at point blank, like you know, this close, like not even 1 meter. I mean, the fact that his weapon was unholstered and pointing at somebody's head, you know, and they're doing a routine traffic stop, and even, okay, he doesn't have a license, so what? Like, why are you taking your weapon out? This is insane, you know. And of course, there's nothing in the car, like nothing, zero, nothing. Car's empty. So I don't know what kind of excuse they're going to try and pull in court to you know. And manslaughter is already very generous. I mean, if you had gone and done that to somebody else, I don't think any excuse in the world is going to help you, especially if you did that to police. You forget it. You're going away for life, you know. So I don't know why this gets downgraded to manslaughter. It's insane. It's really insane. I'm not going to show you the video because they will block it here, but you know, if you have the stomach, go and watch it. And it's because of this video that now the truth has come out, because as I said, initially the police lied. They lied. They said that the car tried to ram them. Complete fabrication. Complete nonsense, you know. And again, you can still argue, even if this were true, and it's absolutely it's a complete lie. But even if you want to play devil's advocate, you can shoot the tires. You can, you know, shoot somebody in the arm. There's a million other ways and you know, avenues to tackle this sort of situation. And you know, I would also argue maybe the reason that the guy started the car and tried to flee is because you had a gun pointed to his head. I mean, you know, it's madness, just complete madness. And I think this is what happens when you start giving, you know, emboldening people in positions of power to behave like this, because then they you know, you guys remember the Stanford prison experiment? That when you put people in positions of power, unfortunately, they will start abusing others, right? And that's what happens here with I mean, we're talking about law enforcement, and the fact that you know, I mean, what's the judiciary going to do? Can they revive people from the dead? There needs to be a change in policy, because this is wild, you know. I mean, you can look at the United States, you can look at the UK, but especially in the United States, you know, George Floyd, there's Jacob Blake, there's a million people who you know, had something like this happen to them. I think Jacob Blake shot 7 times in the back and he's paralyzed for life. 7 times in the back. I mean, what are you trying to stop? A fucking gorilla or a bull or a terrorist? Why would you shoot somebody 7 times in the back? You're obviously very shit at your job if you have to shoot somebody 7 times in the back who is unarmed. I mean, this is just madness, you know, Wild West madness. And I find this really funny, like this person, this cop saying, retourne en Afrique, go back to Africa. You know, it's funny because it's the French who wouldn't leave Africa, right? It's the French who would not leave Africa. You know, it's the slave trade that would not leave Africans in Africa. Always remember this, you know, because you have, you're going to have, not all, but a big enough a chunk of people to be problematic, basically, you know, saying this like racist crap that, oh well, they're burning cars because they're you know, they're Algerian or they're African, or and same thing you hear in the United States. Oh, they're damaging public property because, you know, they're delinquent. This is racist bullshit. And also, how come you care more about property, like material things, in somebody's life? This is very, you know, sick. Is sick. And once again, you know, ask yourself, what relationship do these countries have, you know, with each other, right? Algeria was colonized by the French, right? A lot of African countries colonized by France, and then they tell the Africans to go home. No, you go home. You shouldn't have gone to Africa in the first place, you know, and done that. Same thing with the slave trade, like I mentioned a few minutes ago. You know, you have you know, people in England complaining about people from Pakistan and India. Who went to Pakistan and India first? Who colonized India for 200 years? The Indians, or was it the you know, was it Britain? Who's the aggressor here? You know, and they want to compare state violence, because at the end of the day, this is state violence. When you have someone in a position of law enforcement, a public servant, shooting a boy at point blank range, this is state violence. I mean, I don't really care what color your skin you are, or the fact that he's Algerian, or that the boy is of Algerian descent is really kind of beside. It's another factor, but it doesn't explain or you know, excuse anything that the government is trying to do now, because instead of focusing on the attack, they're making it now about, oh, they're burning cars. Yo, man, you murdered somebody, and you're not holding them, you know, the murderer to account. This is the same, like, oh, you're suspended without pay, and then, you know, when people forget about it, you can go and join another law enforcement agency. It's the same kind of tactic, right? That's what's going on. It's the state violence. T Brown, thank you very much for your comment. I appreciate that. And you know, it's the video speaks for itself. I can't show it to you, but you know, if you can stomach it, again, go watch it. You'll see. And it's kind of it's really funny because in Iran, you remember that they were. You remember Mahsa Amini in Iran? They were saying that she was killed by the state, right? That the hijab police beat her to death or some crap, you know, and they used that as an excuse to go for the regime change. Every couple of years they try this in Iran, you know. You got 2009, and then again afterwards when Obama became president. So, you know, the question here is that is it okay for regime change in France because they killed a boy? What about the United States, right? Like George Floyd, the way he was killed. Is it okay to have a regime change in the United States because of the state violence, which, I mean, by all accounts is way, way worse than anything that happened to Mahsa Amini, or they claim happened to her, right? Like, this stuff is on video. It's extremely brutal. So, state violence in the West, is it okay for a regime change in the West because of that? Because that's the threshold and the standard that is applied towards other countries, right? Like, because Syria, like the Syrian government, supposedly they killed some boy right in Dore back in 2011. That it's okay to like plunge the country into chaos and, you know, fund Al Qaeda and send this group and that group their way. Like, it's totally fine, you know. And as I mentioned, Iran's another example. Like, you know, since since it's being done like this, if that's the standard, then I don't know. Ask yourselves. It's a little hypocritical, right? You'll have Trudeau and you'll have, you know, all these leaders come out and condemn Iran and condemn Syria and condemn this and that country, and then they do this in their own countries, right? This is allowed, and they just, you know. Basil, thanks for the super chat. Basil says, Chomsky lies. Mass media does not manufacture consent, but depression. Yeah. You know, when you turn on the news, they have this these beats that stress you out. Dun, 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 dun. It's like get ready for the depressing shit, right? I mean, look, man, I'm not saying that this stuff is very cheerful either, but you know, I'm not here to do anything except report. Man, these people, mainstream media, this is a brainwashing operation of you know, untold proportions. I think, you know, people like to bring up George Orwell and this stuff. I mean, come on, that's a joke compared to this. It's a joke. But I really want to ask. I really want you guys to ask yourselves. You know, this mantra that if a country in the Middle East abuses its citizens, even if it's one person, then the whole West, the combined West, is to launch an operation to destroy that government and replace it with a so-called democracy, right? So if that's the case, then why don't they do it as well in the West, right? Maybe Iran and Syria and all these countries that have been targeted by the CIA and MI6, maybe they should start, you know, sponsoring regime change in the United States and the UK because or France because of how the state commits violence against its own citizens. No? Fair is fair. I'm only arguing for what Western countries do, right? That's all I'm doing. Ask yourself this question. It's rank hypocrisy, right? It's really disgusting. In any case, you know, the funny thing is that even if you were going to argue for this, like let's play devil's advocate for a second. Like you're going to say that, well, there should be regime change in X country in the West, right? Specifically, because of the state violence that they commit towards their own citizens. Put that aside for a second. The violence that these foreign ministries and the spy agencies of the UK, of France, you know, of the United States have committed towards Latin America, towards Russia, towards the Middle East, you know, those countries have a legitimate case for self-defense from the CIA, from the MI6 to actually, you know, want to get rid of those regimes because, you know, when you think about it, this word regime that they keep using to describe countries that they don't like. Look at the United States, where, you know, if you have a Democratic administration, or rather Democrat administration or Republican, does it really change much? You know, the spy agencies, they have the same politics, you know, control the Western Hemisphere, control the Middle East, control the oil. And you know, to me, that's a real regime because it never changes. It never changes. No matter who you vote for, this is a constant. It's a constant. It's always present, right? So just, you know, I forgot who does this, but I think it's Professor Marendi. He always says the Biden regime. I love it. It's so funny because when you say it out loud like that, it's really, it shows you how ridiculous it is to say, oh, the Assad regime, the Maduro regime. No, let's say the Macron regime. Why not? Duane, thank you very much for joining as a member. We got 6 new members who've just joined on YouTube. So thank you guys very much. Hold on, let me see if I can get your names to thank you guys individually. We have... there we go. Gamer for Life. Gamer for Life 07 _07. Tammy, we got Compo, Blasphemer, we got Anne and Schlafkommandant. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate you joining. And hold on, 4737 Carlin. Thank you all of you guys for supporting the show. If you want to support my work and support independent journalism, you can join on Patreon or on YouTube. It's the same thing, really. It's just like a monthly donation. That's it. I don't do special content. I don't do deluxe stuff. I just do my job. And if you guys can support, then I'm very grateful. I think on YouTube, the only benefit compared to Patreon is you get emojis. So thank you, Duane. And thank you, Farhad says greetings from Afghanistan. Much love to Afghanistan. Hold on, I'm trying to put some of these emojis that Claudia set up here. Give me a second. See? There you go. My favorite ones are the Maduro and Gaddafi emojis. That's it. Who did those hearts? Somebody just did a bunch of hearts. What is that? How did you do that? Like they were... Oh, okay. I see... Nah, you guys are very funny. You guys are very funny. Again, thanks very much. And I'm just going to check on Patreon if we got any new members. And I will play you Crab Dance for those who join on YouTube, of course. I just wanted to double check. There we go. We've got Behave, good name, and Medardo and Mayan, who just joined on Patreon. Thank you guys very much. This Crab Dance is for you guys. There we go.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line, claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome, which is a technical marvel.
والله انت كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro and then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll have 2 number 9s. Number 9 large. We got him. I told myself, I know it's not.
Why you texting? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Oh my god, I cut it too short. No! We missed the very end. All right, guys, I'll have to play another one later when more people join. Let's go through another segment that I wanted to do with you. The show never stops. So, hold on, let me pull this up. Where is it? There we go. Perfect. Okay, so one sec. So, but just before I begin, you guys remember, make sure you go follow In Context, because that's my outlet. And there's a YouTube channel, there's Twitter, everything, and all of these clips that I'm showing you about Ukraine, about Zelensky, about everything, about Biden, they're all on there. Okay, you will find everything with subtitles, with captions, translations, all of it, breaking news, and I use the clips all the time. So I'm really proud of it, and I hope you'll help me to grow it. And yeah, so here's the next clip. Okay, let's go through the next one. Jesus Christ. Oh boy. I want to play you this clip of John Kerry trying to, wiggle his way out of a great question by a French reporter who said that, you're calling Putin a war criminal. Didn't you vote to invade Iraq? Take a look.
Vous, les Américains, vous avez commis le crime d'agression en Irak. Et ces pays du Sud disent, mais est-ce qu'il faut juger George Bush? Pourquoi un George Bush n'est pas jugé de la même façon? Vous y seriez favorable?
Non.
Pourquoi?
Because there's never even been
Parce que
a direct process or
il n'y a pas eu d'accusation à l'encontre du président Bush. Alors s'il y avait eu des abus de pouvoir, oui. Moi, j'étais contre
What does that mean? Okay, first of all, that's a lie that Bush has never been formally accused of war crimes. He has been. In Malaysia, for example, they had a tribunal. The other thing is that he's kind of like, I committed my own war crimes when I was in Vietnam.
J'ai fait la guerre du Vietnam, il y avait des abus, j'en ai parlé, et à la fin de la guerre, il y a eu...
Est-ce que ça n'était pas un crime d'agression d'entrer en Irak sur la base d'un mensonge?
No. Well, you didn't know it was a lie.
On ne savait pas que c'était un mensonge à l'époque.
Wow, where do we begin? Where do we begin? There's so many lies. I can't handle all these lies. Okay. Actually, to the reporter, I would add that whether it was a lie or not is irrelevant. If whether you said Saddam Hussein has, copies of Peter Pan on his nightstand or weapons of mass destruction, it doesn't justify the invasion of Iraq, period. And another lie, of course, was that we need to deliver freedom and democracy. Who the hell is the UK and the US to deliver democracy to anyone? But just going back to what Kerry said, they knew it was a lie, because for years they've been pushing this nonsense about, we should go into Iraq. I showed you this clip of Joe Biden already in 1998, 99, saying that they should invade Iraq and on the basis of WMDs. Dick Cheney, who was the vice president, George Bush's vice president. And when I say vice president, I say that cautiously because he was actually the one running the show. As a lot of people would joke about that at the time, but it's true to an extent, In any case, Dick Cheney went to the CIA and he ordered them to cook up a bunch of nonsense about Iraq so that they would have something, something on paper to dangle, and wave in people's faces at the United Nations, right? And it was built on lies. They all knew this.
Tout ce qui a été produit à l'époque, on ne savait pas que c'était mensonge.
Dude, I was a fucking child and I knew it was a lie. You're a goddamn senator and you didn't know it was a lie? Shame on you, man. Come on. Don't insult people's intelligence.
Alors non, là encore, là vraiment...
mais lui mentait.
Don't hold us accountable. You're not being constructive, okay? Stop this immediately.
Lui mentait.
Sir, I'm not going to redebate the Iraq war here right now. We spent a lot of time doing that previously. I was opposed to going in. I thought it was the wrong thing to do. But we gave the president the power, regrettably, in the Congress, based on the lie. And when we knew it was a lie, people stood up and did the right thing.
Jesus Christ. What does that mean, stood up and did the right thing? Are you able to resurrect people from the dead? Can you, like, undestroy Iraq? Iraq is still destroyed, by the way. And I know I'm going off on a tangent now, but what really, really bothers me, and this is like, in addition to, 1 million people killed, millions more made refugees, the Americans, they actually put a base on top of Babylon. So we're talking actual, the ancient city of Babylon. And they built a helicopter pad on the city and destroyed. I don't even know. I don't think the rest of the sentence even needs finishing. They destroyed it. They not entirely, of course, but they also used, when you're building, not just trenches, but outposts, gunner positions, you need sandbags, right, to build fortifications. And so they were taking rocks and pieces of Babylon and using that to fill their sandbags. Like, Jesus Christ, you're in Iraq. You can't find enough sand. There's a goddamn desert right next door. Just take it from there. No. Let's destroy, priceless human heritage and some of the, the most important artifacts on the planet. This is so ignorant. It beggars belief. In any case, I will let Mr. Kerry finish his word salad here. I don't know what he means with people stood up and did the right thing. What right thing? What is that? The Iraqis told you to get out after murdering Soleimani, and you're still there. The American embassy in Baghdad is really... This is a problem with the Vienna Convention, is that they abuse it. The Americans, when you have an embassy, you cannot touch the embassy. It's sacrosanct, right? So it's considered territory of the guest country, right? But the Americans, they stretch this to its limits, and they not only put diplomatic staff and a CIA spy station, they also bring in Marines and they build barracks. And so now this embassy, instead of being an office or an office building, it becomes a military base. And what am I supposed to say, right? This is an abuse. This is also, pushing it too far. And if you, I think so, if you compare the actual size of the embassy to something, shall we say, the Vatican, right? It's the size of the Vatican. This is the U.S. embassy in Baghdad in the Grayzone, right? It's that big. It's ridiculous. Most embassies are like one office. That's it.
Did the right thing.
Je comprends ça, mais vous comprenez que pour les pays du Sud, bien sûr, ça, la justice, l'égalité, les principes, c'est leur impression, est à double standard, et ça pèse aujourd'hui, y compris dans le débat sur le climat.
Honestly,
non,
the Biden administration
l'administration Biden très clairement et très ouvertement et du côté de la justice environnementale.
Environmental justice? What are you talking about, man? I think Biden is starting to rub off onto Mr. Kerry over here. Wake up, Mr. Kerry. Are you with us? Come on, wake up, Mr. Wait, what do you mean the environment? You know, I have to thank the reporter for actually doing a good job, because most of the time, you know, no, franchement, je te remercie énormément, parce que normally, you know, they'll have someone like Mr. Kerry, you know, a Secretary of State, you know, a diplomat, and they'll just like, you know, give them softball questions. So these are questions that are not really
Biden
questions.
administration.
But here he actually held his feet to the fire. I would have gone even further, you know, because the point that this guy's trying to make, the host here, is that, you know, most of the planet are not interested in hearing about Putin being a war criminal and Russia committing war crimes. They're not interested because they have had it up to here. They've had enough of being, first of all, talked down to, lectured to by the West, and having lived through Western colonialism and seen not just you know, pre-1945, but everything after the neo-colonial establishment, right? So this is the entire infrastructure, from the World Bank, the IMF, to you know, U.S. troops and British troops invading Iraq, you know, again occupying Iraq, as they did previously, and you know, other parts of the Middle East, Syria, Libya. So they cannot. They're not interested. There has, you know, George Bush, remember, right now Zelensky and the Americans, you know, they're saying that Putin should be, you know, tried at The Hague for war crimes. And I find this obscene, because even the United States do not respect the ICC. And I would go even further and say that they loathe the ICC. So for them to now suddenly pretend like, oh, we care about this court, even though we are not we are not a party to the Rome Statute, and we do not participate in this court. We suddenly want this court to try Putin because Putin is evil. The United States, and as far as I know, it's the only country on earth that has something like this. This is under the Bush administration. It's 2002, I think. It doesn't matter. The Bush administration passed a law, and it stipulates that if any American, doesn't have to be the president, could be any American, is taken to The Hague, to the ICC, then they will invade the Netherlands. They will invade the court. They will invade The Hague. Like, it's nicknamed Hague Invasion Act. So, you know, I struggle to understand. Actually, I don't. I know very clearly what's going on. This is disgusting hypocrisy. It's comical, you know, for them to say, we will invade this court if you ever try to try an American, but we really want you to take Putin there, you know, because we care about justice or something. Come on, man. Sorry, you know. And in the UK, just to give you an equivalent, because since we're talking about Iraq and this idea of justice, the UK is a signatory to the Rome Statute. You know, it is a member of the ICC. The thing is, though, that there was, you know, an additional statute. So just to tell you, the first crimes that were ratified as crimes were, you know, crimes against humanity, genocide, and so on. However, crime of aggression, so when you invade a country, this wasn't added until after Iraq, and by that time, you know, the UK had no interest in ratifying it whatsoever. Okay, so Tony Blair, when they tried taking him to court for invading Iraq, this is in the UK. Okay, the High Court stopped it and said that, well, in the UK, invading a country is not a crime. So, you know, we can't really do anything here. And why is it not a crime? Because of what I just laid out to you. Because the UK is a member of the ICC, but not fully. It only picks, you know, it's cherry picking which laws to adopt rather into British common law, and yeah, this is how Mr. Bush and Mr. Blair, you know, get off scot-free, and you know, anyone with half a brain, wherever they are, should be able to see very clearly that you know, there's no interest in any justice here or something, and you know, I think especially Iraq, because the Americans went to the UN Security Council, they went to the UN in New York, and they could not get a resolution passed in favor of what they were trying to do in Iraq, unlike Afghanistan, by the way. But again, just because the UN, does something doesn't necessarily make it okay, right? In any case, the fact that they tried to go through the UN, they failed, and then still invaded nonetheless, it was such a middle finger and screw you to the UN, to international law, to everything. Okay, that's why it's so important. It's not just the scale of the invasion. It's the middle finger to international law, and this is why no one can take anything that's being said about the Russians seriously, because there are no standards anymore. Every law that exists has been broken. Every treaty, every convention, from war crimes to crime of aggression, it's all been done, and no one did anything to stop Britain or the US. No one has been held accountable. I think if in Iraq you have one person in the British Army who's ever been convicted of a war crime, and I'm sorry, you really think only one person committed a war crime in the British Army in Iraq? I forgot what this guy's name was. I did a segment on it before, but he basically beat an Iraqi hotel a receptionist, I think, or worker, to death. Right? He was kidnapped. They beat him to death, and then only one person was convicted, and it was a corporal. And after 1 year, he got out of prison. I mean, Jesus Christ, by anyone's standards, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? So seriously, we're this is a joke. Oh, Putin Shivers. What the hell, man? Let's clean up our own house, and then we can worry about the Russians. Yeah. Let me show you this also from Mr. Dore. So he's the former UN expert on promotion of a democratic and equitable international order. And he says that the Iraqi invasion was the most flagrant violation of international law since 1945, a veritable revolt against the UN Charter, incomparably more criminal than the Ukraine war. The fact that Bush remained unpunished manifests the absence of enforcement mechanisms in the UN. Yep. And he says here that John Kerry forgets that the People's Tribunal meeting at Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, composed of eminent lawyers and judges, did convict George Bush in 2012. The scandal is that Bush was never impeached in the US nor indicted by the ICC, although the tribunal's judgment was referred to the ICC. Right. So just so you understand something, because Russia is also not a member of the ICC. The victim or the plaintiff, shall we say, in a case, if they are a member of the ICC, so Iraq, for example, or Afghanistan, then it's enough to bring a case forward, even if the defendant is not a member of the Rome Statute. Okay, so that's why the Israelis were so afraid of Palestine having jurisdiction or being considered a member. Although I doubt anything will happen, look at his point. Bush never indicted, Netanyahu, Tony Blair, nothing at the ICC. And, there's a lot of disdain that people have for the ICC because it's been viewed as an institution whose sole function, in whether they meant this originally or not, but they view the ICC as an institution that only goes after African leaders or maybe from Yugoslavia. Like that's it. White Western leaders are untouchable. The only person of any magnitude of like the leader of a superpower or power, because we're talking about Russia, not the Soviet Union. It's Putin, right? Like there's no one else of his caliber that has actually been indicted at the ICC. And once again, you want to talk about Ukraine. I mean, this is incomparable to Iraq. Nothing has been done about Iraq. So, how is it that the ICC has time to deal with Ukraine and Putin, but not for Bush and so on? And on top of it, the indictment at the ICC is that the allegation is that Putin forcibly transferred children And I mean, the Russian point of view, or rather response to that is, well, Russia was removing refugees or basically moving children out of a conflict zone to protect them. But from the ICC's point of view, it's like, forcible transfer of population. It's ethnic cleansing. I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't believe that the Russians want to ethnically cleanse Ukraine. That's ridiculous. Right? You want to talk about ethnic cleansing? Let's look at Palestine. Let's look at what the Israelis are doing there. That's ethnic cleansing. That's something you should be worried about. That's something that merits and warrants the utmost of devotion and attention from Western countries to solving this issue. Number one, right? That's the number one thing you deal with instead of bringing some bogus charge against the Russians. Again, there's no proportionality here. There's no justice, just justice, none. Charles says Russia is a superpower. I mean, if you ask me, I'm speaking, before strictly on a basis of when it comes to geography, okay, and when it comes to international politics after 1991, the official consensus is that, well, and this is of course in the West, right, is that Russia was no longer a superpower. It was fractured, or shall we say the Soviet Union, excuse me. And now you have one hyperpower, okay? I'm not sure this is, a term that's used too much in English, but it certainly is in French. And I think it's an excellent term for, the purpose that it serves, just as a word. Hyperpower. And that was used to refer to the United States. Now, if you ask me, is the United States really a hyperpower? In what way? What's the metric here? If you're talking about hard power and soft power, basically the land mass, how much land does this country have? The United States is a state continent. It's so big, it's a state continent, right? And then of course you have to consider, the resources. Does the United States have a lot of resources? Yeah, it's quite a significant amount of resources. Its armed forces, does it have not the best, but does it have very powerful military technology? And yes, but of course, this omits the fact that it's a business. It's in the business of making war, of waging war, and this is of course criminal. But in any case, and then you look at the diplomatic pressure, cultural impact to the United States. The United States, if you look at although this is something attributable more to the UK as well, because English became the lingua franca, right? So before you had French, which was like considered the primary language of science and diplomacy and politics and aristocracy. That's no longer the case. It's English now. English is the language of science, and most movies that are consumed in the world, English language movies. Hollywood, Pinewood in England, Pinewood studios. This counterculture revolution you had in the 60s with rock and roll, music, all of this cultural impact, that's soft power, so but that's again it's 50-50 between the UK and the US, because again British invasion and so on, and after all this is English we're talking about, not American. But my point here is that most academics, they were in 1991 and onwards said, oh, the United States is the hyperpower. I don't think that's the case anymore, Circling back, I don't think that's the case, because right now, what is power? Is the United States with the dollar, is its future looking good? No, I would say the opposite, right? Right now, who's on track to becoming the big daddy, the hyperpower? It's China. But that's the thing. It's not only China, because China's in the interest, China's interest is to bring along a host of other players with it. That includes Russia, that includes India, China, of course, Brazil and South Africa, and plus. So now we don't talk about BRICS, we talk about BRICS plus. So you know, this is Argentina, this is Syria, this is Iran, you know, this is Saudi Arabia, and so on and so on. And you consider that Syria is applying to be not just BRICS, a BRICS member, but also Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO. That's also a very powerful thing. So anybody who's anyone, right? Anybody who's somebody, rather, is going to be in BRICS Plus, and they're going to be in SCO, and they're going to be in the Belt and Road Initiative. So who knows, 50 years down the line, 25 years down the line, where everything is going to be. The thing is that, you know, China have said very clearly that they are not trying to lock or you know, lock the Americans out or block them from taking part. On the contrary, they want everybody to take part, and if the Americans want to see the light, so to speak, you know, and Western countries want to get on board, then they're free to do so. This is not some kind of you know, exclusive you know, snob-nosed club. That's not in the interests of the BRICS countries, and it's not how things work. It's multipolar by definition. So afterwards, when we talk about hyperpowers, I think you will have multiple superpowers working together, and who knows if it's going to be much more peaceful. Hopefully, I think right now it's on an irreversible, you know, track. We have to wait and see. But yeah, I think it'll be better than how it is now. So, you know, Russia is definitely a power. Okay, shall we put it that way? I agree. It's still a superpower, and if it weren't a superpower, how would it be able to contend with 50 countries, you know, fighting it in Ukraine? I mean, you can't handle 50 countries. So in any case, like I said, it's the world that's coming. People are going to refer to countries and you know, so-called superpowers in different terms and different ways, because the nature of the game will be different. So yeah. Thanks for the super chat, Basil. Basil says, remember Rachel Corrie. Rachel Corrie is an American who was literally run over by an Israeli bulldozer. So, you know, that, you know, the Israelis, they use bulldozers to destroy Palestinian homes for ethnic cleansing, and she tried to stop one. She tried to stop an Israeli bulldozer, and they ran her over. Actually, if you're an American and you go to occupied Palestine or Israel, you're going to be in for a big surprise, because they actually don't give a shit that America funds Israel. That you know, they give Israel a blank check. Actually, it's the Israelis. They really don't give a crap. You're not going to get any special treatment. But Elena says, my theory is that Prigozhin was after, not after the leaders of Russia, but Wagner. Since Wagner are respected in Africa and Latin America, the West want to end their reputation. Well, look, as I was saying before, you know, you mentioned that they are in Africa as well. I don't think that Prigozhin is stupid enough to try and challenge Putin, right? At most, again, we are speaking generally here. At most, this was a power struggle between Prigozhin and Shoigu. Okay, anything more, I don't agree that that's accurate. And I think you'll also agree with me that at most, you know, he's in a competition with Shoigu. And we know this because for months he's saying you're incompetent, you're stupid, you're not helping us, you're not giving us ammunition. And then, you know, even when he was doing his insurrection or coup, as they like to call it, you know, he said, he didn't say I'm going to the Kremlin. He said we're going to you know, we're going on a march for justice, and he was targeting the defense ministry, right? Now, as I said before, on one hand, you can absolutely view that as bad for Putin, because who appoints the defense minister? whose defense ministry is this? Yes, it belongs to Russia, but Putin is the president, so in a way you are challenging him. But I don't think he seriously had this in his head that he's going to go and no. I think that this is I think what really happened remains to be seen, because like I said, Latvia and Lithuania, they're complaining now that Wagner is setting up in Belarus. Is this true? Do you really think 25,000 are going to go there? Maybe they think that Prigozhin will recruit new ones in Belarus, and not necessarily that the 25K will. Who knows? We will see. But I want to just put this to bed, that this idea that it was a coup and Prigozhin was going to go and get rid of Putin. These people are morons. The neocons that are writing this garbage, like in CNN. So it's. I went off on a tangent, but whatever. So yeah. Okay. Malatank says, where can we look at Richard merch? Actually, that's a good point, because I often forget to plug the store. Hold on. Here is the. Okay, I'm posting the link in the chat, and I appreciate you asking. Here it is. So there's the link. I think you guys can see it on the screen. So yeah, chunkless for all, oh man, I need to get back in Mona because we're working on a new design. But yeah, I forget to plug the show. So in any case, if you want to support the show, this is one way. And again, I think you guys will like the Uncle Joe's Rainbow Coalition Death Cult a lot. Many people did, and it says at the top, actually, Corn Pop will give you 20% off. I think I set this, I turned this on at one point, and I've just left it on, whatever. So yeah, use that, okay? Use Corn Pop, and it will give you 20% off. This is one way of supporting the show. And another is, of course, donations on Patreon and PayPal. We might have received a bunch on PayPal. Let me check. Because sometimes it's not working. Give me a second. It's loading. This is from Donna. Thank you very much. She says, keep up the good work, and I appreciate you explaining the pizzeria incident. Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. And thank you for the donation. And we also have another one from Pablo. Thank you, Pablo. And this one is from Rima as well. So thank you guys very much. I don't see any comments there, but nevertheless. So I don't know what number we are at right now on Patreon. Give me a second to look. Claudia's like always updating the thing. Okay, we're at 684. Not bad. We're slowly getting there, guys. So we are at 684, and we want to get 700. Okay. So quick maths, 16 left. Okay. We just need 16 of you left to join, and we've got 1,000 people watching right now. So again, if you enjoy my work, you found the videos informative, and you gained some insight or knowledge from it, please consider supporting the show. It's patreon.com/RichardMedhurst, and we just need 16 more to join, and then we will have met the goal and hit the goal. And yeah, so I'm gonna put the link up on the thing. Hold on. Go, the thing. Christ, you got the election starting soon. You guys already know I'm gonna cover that, right? So I have to suffer through it, but I do this for you. I do this for you. Jesus, I mean, the last one was wild, right? The last one was wild. I don't know if anyone warrants your support as of yet, but the field is not looking too good as of, right now. In any case, this is the Patreon website. So it says $2 a month or $5 a month. These are just random options. You can put whatever figure you like in whatever currency, also pounds, rubles, maybe gold, who knows? Maybe give me some renminbi. That would be nice. Pretty soon we're gonna have to be dealing in rubles and renminbi because that's where it's at. But yeah, in any case, we're at 684 and we want to get 700 guys. So let's do it. I believe in you, and I know we can get there. Claudia's very nice. Thank you, Claudia. She updated the thing. Give me a sec, and I will put it up on the screen. Hold on. There we go. You guys can see Joe Biden? There he is. There's Mr. Biden. All right, guys, let's go. I'm doing a pledge drive over here, and I trust you'll make it succeed. And again, if you just share the video and like the video, that's a huge help. Can I also add that to make sure that we have everybody attending the live stream, right? Like it's a class. It is. Make sure you hit this bell icon. And if you would like to receive a notification via email, so it's literally just one link. When I go live, you get an email with the YouTube link, the Rumble, and Rockfin, period. It's that simple. And here's the form, right? It's literally one box. We've got over 2,000 of you who are subscribed. So it's richardmedhurst.substack.com, and Claudia's very kind. She's posted the links in the comments in the live chat. So yeah, that's really it. And I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I'm just waiting like last minute, see if we get anybody on so I can put a crab dance. Oh, there we go. Look, we got Mona. Mona, it's good to see you, Mona. And Denise says, I need a crab dance. I didn't get one when I joined. Free Assange and Lyra. Thank you, Richard, for your excellent journalistic work. Well, I'm most humbled, and of course, I will absolutely play crab dance for you. Let's go.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line. Claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome, which is a technical marvel.
والله انتوا كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro, and then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll have 2 number 9s. A number 9 large. We got him.
I know it myself. I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Why you texting? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
Oh man, why? Speaking of Biden, I need to show you this clip. Jesus Christ, this guy is unbelievable. You know, I try to ignore all of these slip-ups because I'm like, you know, it happens to everybody, but this one is really wow. Okay, hold on. Let me put this link up here. I'm glad Claudia reminded me to cover it. Okay, hold on. Christ. I mean, I'm speechless. I'm really speechless. Okay, here we go. Let's do it. All right. Let me introduce you to Joe Biden's latest gaffe, slip up, whatever you want to call it. Take a look.
Has Vladimir Putin been weakened by recent events? It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home. And he has become a bit of a pariah around the world.
I had to put this upside down. I was like, what? The war in what? Iraq? Are you having nightmares, Joe? Are you having regrets about what you did? The war in what?
Become a bit of a war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home. And he has become a bit of a pariah around the world.
Jesus. Wake up, Joe. Joe! Wake up! Wake up! What are you doing? What are you doing?
Vladimir Putin been weakened by recent events? It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home.
This guy's having nightmares. He's having flashbacks. Yeah. All right. I think this was the Freudian slip, the most Freudian of slips. Jesus. Because he been drilling this crap into people's brains and his own brain since the 1990s. War in Iraq. The war in Iraq. Let's go to war in Iraq. War in Iraq. He it's been internalized now forever. War in Iraq. War in Iraq. Let's go to war in Iraq.
And he has become a bit of a pariah around the world.
No, actually, you're becoming a goddamn pariah with the way that you speak, man. Jesus Christ. It's like every other day he has some slip up. I think just yesterday he said also that he sold state secrets, but I think to be fair, to cut him some slack, to give him the benefit of the doubt, that was cut short, and he was giggling after, so it was clearly a joke. I mean, I don't I see the world is not going easy on Mr. Kerry and Biden over here, huh? Iraq is coming back to haunt them. Honestly, man, these people should be pariahs. These people should be pariahs, after what they did. Jesus, I don't even know how they still have jobs. It's like they fail upwards. Kill 1 million people, become president. You have to keep in mind that John Kerry and Joe Biden, because we were just talking about Iraq. Well, he was anyway. They were Democrats, yes. And at the time when the war in Iraq began, this was a neoconservative Republican administration. Okay, George Bush, Donald Rumsfeld, Paul Wolfowitz, Jesus Christ. I mean, the whole bag of you talk about scum. Anyway, just to show you again how there's no difference between these guys, especially now, because a lot of neoconservatives are now they identify as Democrat. But again, going back to my main point, at the time, Mr. Biden over here, he's the one that guaranteed this approval of the AUMF 2002. So AUMF is authorization for the use of military force. It's basically in U.S. Law. This is something that was result of the 1973 War Powers Resolution. So if a president wants to go to war, he has to go through Congress and get it approved through Congress, and then of course this is separate of immediate actions to supposedly defend the United States, in which he has like 48 hours to notify them. But it's within the same framework. This is because Nixon was caught lying about Vietnam, so they tried to rein in the war powers that the president has, and have more checks and balances. Well, here's the thing: there's nobody checking or balancing anything, because they have the same policies. Mr. Kerry over here, I forgive me if I didn't make this clear enough. He voted to go to war in Iraq. And now he's saying, we stood up and did the right thing when we found out it was a lie. You stood up and what? You farted? What's the right thing that you did, John? Huh? What did you do? It's like Biden. Why? Yeah, I'd like to know why. These are Democrats, right? So they facilitated the passage of this AUMF under a neoconservative. It's not just Republican, neoconservative, across the dregs, of politics. And they still have jobs, and no one really cares. I mean, the reason Kerry was kind of held to account here is that he's on French media. France did not join in on this coalition of the willing, as it were, as it was named. What a joke. So I think at the time they wanted to rename French fries freedom fries, because as like a sign of boycott. In any case, Biden is clearly having a Freudian slip here. The only pariah, man, I gotta be honest with you. After Iraq, the United States became a pariah around the world, truly, because you have to understand, after 9/11, a lot of people you know, had a lot of sympathy for the U.S., right? Because it was, you know, you had a few thousand people killed, and you had tons of countries around the world. I think the absolute majority of countries around the world were sending messages of condolences to the United States, and you know, expressing their sympathies, and then within less than 2 years, everything changed, because they used 9/11 as a a pretext to do the Patriot Act, to start this war on terror, you know, mass surveillance. And of course they were always doing these things, but now it became out in the open, right? Then a lot of people started resenting the United States and Britain, of course, you know, for Iraq, because they gave a middle finger to the UN, to international law, and did what they wanted. And I think it's important to remind you that Joe Biden helped do that. And, you know, I just because the Congress passes a piece of paper, that doesn't make it law, okay? I mean, this piece of paper is worthless outside of the United States. Yeah, you want to go to war in Iraq. So? So what? Iraq is not in the United States, right? It's a different country. And regardless, it's the principle. It's a principle that these guys say. They were, to this day, you know, they're acting like they didn't do anything, like, you know, Putin is worse, and what they did with Bush is fine, you know, and that's really sweeping something under the rug, right? And it shows you again how these two parties is just a joke, man. It's a joke. You know, they're working together. They're two birds of a feather, you know, Mr. Kerry and Mr. Bush, Mr. Biden and Mr. Bush. Two birds of a feather, always been that way, always will be. And that's it. Thank you, Baloo, for joining as a member. I will play you a crab dance as well, and I appreciate that very much. I hope you enjoy the new emojis. And we have Leslie, who joined on Patreon, so thank you guys very much. I have a last crab dance for you, and then I'm out of here, and let's do it.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line, claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome, which is a technical marvel.
والله انت كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro, and then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll have two number 9s. Number 9 large. We got him. Myself, I know.
Why you texting? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
There we go, guys. There we go. I would play you more slip-ups of Biden, but we would be here all night, quite literally. So, yeah, we'll leave it at that. Thank you guys again so much for your support. Thank you for tuning in and for sharing the videos, and I really appreciate it. So, yeah. You know, I'll keep you guys up to date. If you want, follow me on Twitter, because I'm posting, obviously, in between, when, you know, breaking news and my thoughts on things. So, here it is. If you want, here's the page. Okay, there's the handle. So again, thank you guys very much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Take care. Ma salame. Bye-bye.
So you have another terrorist attack in Ukraine. This time it's the Kakovka Dam. And the first thing the media do is blame the Russians. So let's see why the Russians would do it. They control the dam. They control the region. They need the dam to funnel water to Crimea, which is also under Russian control. They literally have zero motive. There is no motive. You know, the Washington Post in December published an article showing how Ukraine targeted this dam using American missiles, using the HIMARS system. They actually fired a missile at this dam to test if they could flood areas. Sound familiar? This is the same thing that we saw with the Nord Stream pipeline attacks, right? The first thing the press do is let's go and blame Russia. And now, almost a year later, the Washington Post finally admits that Ukraine, not Russia, Ukraine blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. This is something that I, myself, and others have been saying since the very beginning. Anyone with half a brain knew that it was not Russia. Russia would not blow up their own pipeline. But, you know, this was dismissed as a crackpot conspiracy theory that NATO would maybe do this, or Ukraine. No, that's Russian propaganda. And another example, the Nazi patches. This week, the New York Times also finally admit that Ukrainian soldiers en masse are wearing Nazi patches to the point that Western journalists have to ask them to hide the patches before they take photos of them. I mean, this is despicable on another level. And then later they claim that these are authentic photos. This is not journalism. This is curated propaganda. So are the New York Times and Washington Post doing propaganda now, right? They're doing Russian disinformation. These people are not doing journalism, all right? You guys are a year late. Only publishing the truth when nobody cares anymore. That's not journalism, okay? They are the ones doing disinformation. They are the ones doing propaganda. And these acts of state terrorism, blowing up pipelines and dams, European leaders say literally absolutely nothing. And all they do is give more money and more weapons to an army where men are wearing Nazi patches and blowing up our infrastructure. So what's the conclusion? Always ask yourself, who stands to gain? Whether we're talking about the Crimea Bridge, Nord Stream pipelines, or the Kakovka Dam like today, always ask yourself who stands to benefit, and you'll find the answer, you'll find the truth. So everyone's talking about how Donald Trump has been indicted under the Espionage Act. But what a lot of people don't understand is that the Espionage Act is a law that has always been used in the United States as a political tool to silence opponents. It was crafted in 1917, so during World War I, and one of its most famous victims was Eugene Debs. He was given 10 years in prison and stripped of his citizenship because he gave an anti-war speech. Ellsberg, Manning, Kiriakos, Snowden, they were all charged under the Espionage Act as well, and none afforded a public interest defense. Yet another reason why the Espionage Act is a political tool to silence whistleblowers, quite literally, even in court. Even worse, it's also being used to threaten Julian Assange, a publisher, with almost 200 years in prison. So many people are upset about Trump putting classified documents in the bathroom. I wonder if they care just as much about freedom of speech and press freedoms. Trump definitely put America's national security at risk, not for bringing home documents, but assassinating Soleimani, the equivalent of Iran's defense minister. How come Trump's critics never attack him for actual crimes, like putting illegal sanctions on millions of people or stealing oil from Syria?
We're keeping the oil. We have the oil. The oil is secure. We left troops behind only for the oil.
If you love Ukraine, if you care about Ukraine, depleted uranium is the last thing in the world that you would tell them to use. If you look at what the United States have done, everywhere they've used depleted uranium, it's like dropping a nuclear bomb, and actually worse in other ways. Just to give you an example, in Fallujah in Iraq, guess what? 10, 20 years later, there are people in Fallujah who are being born with cancer. And it's so bad that you have higher rates of birth defects and congenital heart disease in Fallujah than you do in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. In Nagasaki and Hiroshima, you knew that there was a nuclear explosion and you had to get the hell away from there if you could. The thing is, the people in Iraq didn't know what the Americans had put in the tank shells. You know, they dropped so much white phosphorus, they used so much depleted uranium. The people living there have no clue about this. You know, the war is bad enough without knowing that, you know, if you live there and you stay there, you're going to get cancer, and your kids are going to be born with these massive nightmarish birth defects. And now they want to bring this literally cancerous thing, depleted uranium, and use it in Ukraine. If you love Ukraine, if you care about Ukraine, depleted uranium is the last thing in the world that you would tell them to use, because guess who's going to suffer from that? The people in Ukraine, right? Like, if their idea is to liberate Ukraine, right? Okay, let's say that they do. Tomorrow morning, Zelensky's gonna emerge victorious over the Donbass and Crimea, and he's gonna go have a nice parade, right? Guess what? All the people returning to their homes, or all the people living there, you're gonna give those people in Ukraine cancer because you use depleted uranium, because this stuff goes in the earth. It seeps into the earth, into the soil, into the water. It's actually worse than a nuke, truly, because people don't even know that it's there. They have no clue that they're living next to things that are going to give them cancer and destroy their DNA and give their children massive birth defects. They don't even know that it's there. It's like a silent killer. They don't care about you, man. They don't care about you. This is bad for the environment, obviously. That doesn't even need stating. And it's bad for human beings, and it's bad for wildlife, for everyone. But it's good for what? It's good if you manufacture it. It's very good.
This is explosive. This is mind-blowing. How do we know that it's the Ukrainians who haven't held up their end of the deal, but the Russians have? The deal was that the Russians will pull out of Kiev. At the time, the media that we have here in the West, they were saying, oh, the Russians have failed. Their army sucks. That's actually not at all what happened. The Russians pulled back on purpose and left the capital. They left Kiev because of this peace agreement. Boris Johnson was the prime minister at the time, and he just randomly happens to go and visit Zelensky. And he tells Zelensky, drop out of the peace negotiations, drop out. Zelensky did what Boris Johnson told him to do. Angela Merkel, who is the German chancellor, she says that in the end, the Minsk agreement, it was just a ruse in order to buy time for NATO to arm Ukraine. This means that, once again, you cannot take Western leaders and diplomats seriously. The Russians are done talking. This is the conclusion that I draw from this, because they have had it up to here with Ukraine and their backers and guarantors, you know, just playing games with them. So just remember the next time that the media tell you that the Russians walked away from peace talks, that this is a lie. And when they tell you the next time that Russia wanted this war, that this is a lie. Just remember these things.
Some in Iran wanted Iran to go to war with the Taliban. And actually, they were liberals. They were the pro-Western liberals who were saying that we should, you know, go to the defense of the Tajiks, or Persian speakers, the Hazaras, who are predominantly Shia, and the Uzbeks and others. They together are more than 50%. Taliban is basically Pashtun. They are 40%, roughly 40% of the country. It's sort of ironic, because the people who are calling for Iran to wage war against the Taliban, they were totally against the Russians in Ukraine. Their logic is not dissimilar to the logic of the Russians. These people were saying we should go to the support of the Persian speakers. Why not the Russians support Russian speakers? But yeah, that hypocrisy is aside. The Iranian government said, look, we have to keep Afghanistan peaceful, and it's had enough war.
South Africa, China, Brazil, all these countries that are BRICS countries. So you know, they are partners with Russia. They're not condoning Russia. They're actually saying, hey, everybody calm down and let's resolve this. And all you see is media attacking them. They attacked South Africa for proposing diplomacy. They attack Lula for trying to sit down Zelensky. Zelensky makes him wait and then doesn't even show up to the meeting. I mean, how insulting in any context, right? Never mind a goddamn president of the largest country in Latin America. So they try to like attack the countries closest to Russia for actually suggesting peace. Maybe South Africa should give some F-16s instead of being a Putin puppet, right? Maybe China should send some F-16s instead of being a Kremlin asset.